All right, we've got a really cool 49ers update this morning. You guys know that I've followed this team for a while. You know that I'm half Czech, half American, and that a 49ers fan from Northern California is the coach of the team out in Prague, the Prague Black Panthers. They had never won an Austrian Football League championship. They had never beaten the Vienna Vikings, the big dogs of that football league, in a playoff game. In fact, they even lost to them in the playoffs last season until today, until about an hour ago. The Prague Black Panthers, known as PBP over in Prague, are Austrian Football League champions. They won Austrian Bowl 39, and they won it in the most dramatic fashion possible. That's Spencer Ford, the 49ers fan, the coach. You could see the relief on his face. They blew a lead to Vienna in the semifinals last year, and they were able to get the win this time. We might hear from Spencer a little bit later in the show. The Vienna team, obviously, very sad there. And this is Prague with their medals, their trophy, and, really cool. This is something that I've been able to cover over the course of the past year. In fact, last year, I even got to write an in-depth article on this that ran in the New York Times that you could see right here. The story of football's rise in Prague with surprising 49ers connections. Obviously, one of those connections, Spencer Ford, the coach who you saw. Couple other connections. Kyle Newhall Caballero, who's now a scout for the Raiders. That used to be their quarterback on the right. He was actually watching this morning in the Raiders team facility as Prague won their first championship. Jim Tomsula is the coach of the team that won the ELF last year, the Rhine Fire. It's a remake of NFL Europe. That's the former 49ers coach, Jim Tomsula. That was part of the international article that I wrote. There's Spencer Ford, the 49ers fan who just coached Prague to the championship. Their linemen have simple plays like power tattooed onto their arms. And when this team first got started in the early 1990s, there was, obviously a revolution in Czechoslovakia at the time. They moved from communism to their current government. So they were finally opened up to Western ideas. They weren't allowed under communism to play American football, watch American football. So as soon as everything opened up in 1989, there was a group of guys who just started playing football on gravel and then ultimately on very poor grass with oversized pads because they wanted to be American. They wanted to do American things that had been prohibited to them. And now, some 35 years later, they have won the Austrian Bowl championship against Vienna. It's like the 49ers overcoming the Cowboys in the 1990s, or the 49ers overcoming the Chiefs. That's what the 49ers are going to be trying to do in a few months. Well, that's what the Prague Black Panthers were just able to do against the Vienna Vikings. This is the beginnings of everything in the early 1990s. And now the championship has been won. So it was a really, really neat moment. You could see more of their celebration afterwards here. One of their linebackers tore his ACL, 52. He's been on the team for a long time. That's why he's hopping over to the trophy. Number 2 on Prague, he's you could see right there, one of their receivers. He's actually an ER trauma surgeon. So he's working by night in the emergency room as a surgeon, and then he's playing football by day. That's how much these guys love the sport. In fact, I got to head over there with Margot to Prague back in May, and we got to catch a game, and it was awesome. They play on a soccer field. This is one of their home games. They're the team wearing the black uniforms here. I know they were wearing white in the championship game today. But it's like lower level college football, I would say, the level of play. It's obviously elevated over the years. They're allowed 3 Americans per team. And usually one of the Americans is the quarterback. You could see I used the picture from the early 1990s when they first started playing there. And the really cool thing about everything is that there is a definite 49ers connection in their actual history. that you'll see through one of the trams in Prague. Another look at Spencer Ford, the 49ers fan who is their head coach. These guys love the game so much that they actually have to carry the goalpost off the field because it has to be reconverted to a soccer field after they're done playing. This is one of the offensive or defensive linemen lining up as eligible, scoring as a tight end in that game that we went and saw in May. But this right here is really, really neat because when American football, they have a beer garden at the stadium. Obviously, they do. They all drink beer, a lot of it after the game. If we talk to Spencer in a little bit, I am sure that we're going to see players partying on the bus back home to Prague. But check this out right here. This is the number 16 tram in Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. And it obviously has got red color along with white. So the 49ers colors, at least the red. When you go with their throwback uniforms, I guess they're red and white as well. When American football was first introduced in Prague, it was the early 1990s, right after the revolution. And when this Prague Black Panthers team got started in the early 1990s, they obviously idolized the biggest star of the time in the American game, and it was Joe Montana. It just so happens that the training facility for the Prague Black Panthers is on the 16 tram line. And they call it in Prague the Joe Montana tram because it's the number 16 tram. Speaking of the Joe Montana tram and speaking of Joe Montana, you might see who's in the background right there. Yes, that is Joe Montana himself. If I lean off of the screen here, he will come into focus. There you go. Quarterback, Joe Montana. Camera's on autofocus, so you could see the artwork behind me. Anyway, Joe Montana in the background and the Joe Montana tram also on the screen. The way they won the game today was absolutely amazing. And we'll talk about it with Spencer, their coach, Spencer Ford, when he's available to talk here in a little bit. I know they've already started partying out there in Vienna before the bus ride back home. But the way that they won the game today was a lot like how the 49ers won their first Super Bowl 16 against the Cincinnati Bengals. It was also like a more recent game that the 49ers won that was very pivotal and very dramatic. But Prague was up 20-0. 20-0. That's the 49ers were up 20-0 against the Bengals in that Super Bowl 16. But Vienna put on a charge at the end of the game and they cut it to 20-14. And they had the ball and they were driving and only seconds remained. They got down to the Prague 1-yard line with about 8 seconds left. And it took a goal line stand from Prague as time expired to win the championship. It reminded me a lot of this, Dan Buns, number 57, with the goal line stand for the 49ers against the Cincinnati Bengals in a massive, massive moment in 49ers franchise history. So we talk about some of these ties. Well, the game that I just watched this morning had a moment similar to this one or similar to this moment. Do you guys remember Dre Greenlaw stopping Jacob Hollister, 2019 season, 49ers, Seahawks at the goal line that reversed the Seahawks Seattle hex for the 49ers? We can get this from multiple angles, including Dre Greenlaw's celebration following the game. That was one of the wildest finishes that I've ever witnessed in person. It was literally at the 1-inch line that the 49ers stopped the Seahawks. They won that game 26-21, which was the same margin of victory as this game. This was 26-21 over the Bengals in the Super Bowl. So the two most famous goal line stands in 49ers history, Dan Buns and Dre Greenlaw, as a rookie, both happened with 26-21 scores. And this championship for Prague, well, it happened with a goal line stand as well. It wasn't 26-21, but it was 20-14, and it was also 20-0, just like this Super Bowl started for the 49ers. Anyway, really cool stuff. We'll see if Spencer can chime in here in a little bit, and we will move to a 49ers 53-man roster projection while we wait for that. How's everybody doing? It's a day off for the 49ers, so I got to watch that, which was really neat on this Sunday morning. I woke up, I slept in a little bit till 8. I was able to flip the game on. It was 8 a.m. It was Austrian Bowl 39. They even have Roman numerals, XXXIX for Austrian Bowl 39. It was a great crowd. It was a great presentation on Austrian TV. The announcers were German, but they were saying enough American words like first down, nice catch. They like to break into American words when they're using football terminology that I was able to understand enough of the broadcast. And then I was treated to an absolutely epic game this morning. But the 49ers 53-man roster projection is what we will go to. We have Dan Buns up on the screen, but we also have the ability to toggle into the 49ers roster, which you can check out right here. Last night, we ran a big show taking a look at every single player on the 49ers roster. And that was fun because we were able to really delve into the nitty-gritty, I think, in a way that nobody else really can do. Today, though, we can start looking at a more overarching picture of where the 49ers might be when this roster comes to cut down day. Obviously, there's still a whole lot of stuff to project moving forward. When you look at the actual roster, I've updated it now. Pink means the player is hurt. And there's a chance, that some of these players remain hurt through roster cutdown day, which might mean an injured reserve designation, which would mean that they're not eligible to play in this 2024 season. I don't know if that's likely, but we'll see. Now, PUP is going to be a little bit different. If you're already on PUP now to begin the season or begin the training camp, then you can carry over to the in-season PUP list, physically unable to perform. And with that in-season PUP list, you would actually be eligible to come back after 4 games. But if you get hurt during training camp, if you've already practiced at some point during training camp, and then you go on injured reserve, and then you stay on injured reserve through the roster cut down, you are actually ineligible to play in the 2024 season. The only way that somebody who's on IR at the start of the season is eligible to come back from IR is if he's first placed on the 53-man roster, and then he reverts to injured reserve. So you have to take up a 53-man roster spot to start. The reason I tell you this is because the 49ers are going to be playing a game of Tetris once the roster cut down hits in about a month. They're going to have to figure out how to fit the 53 men on their 53-man roster and also create a 16-man practice squad. They may play some games with cuts and re-signings and backroom wink deals with guys on injured reserve so they can fit this 53-man roster and they can carry all the players that they want to carry. But it's inherently more tricky for a team that's good, for a team that's as loaded as the 49ers, to keep everybody that they want in the building for a couple reasons. A, they're brimming with talents. There's bound to be more decisions to make at the margins. And B, other teams are going to be very interested in poaching players that the 49ers cannot protect. So the 49ers might have to option somebody to the practice squad, which involves cutting them, exposing them either to waivers or to signing from other teams. And even if they want to bring that player back to the practice squad, there might be another team with a weaker roster who's really interested in grabbing some of the 49ers mojo, and they're willing to sign that player to the active roster. Player on the active roster makes at minimum close to $1 million per year, whereas a player on the practice squad is only going to make $200,000 to $300,000 per year. So even if the player would rather stay with the 49ers, if all money were equal, the money might not be equal, and the 49ers might risk losing a player out of the building to another team's active roster. So that's why when we look at training camp, we have to view it through the lens of how are the 49ers going to preserve their roster in the most efficient way possible over the course of the next month, and then obviously at the actual roster cut down deadline. So we go through this position by position and we look at guys that are on the bubble, and we look at players like Trent Taylor at the wide receiver position, Jarrett Kingston, Brandon Parker at the offensive line position. You look at defensive line. Where's Kalia Davis going to go for the 49ers? Are they going to carry somebody like Evan Anderson or Shaquille Brown? Linebacker, their 7th round pick, Tatum Bethune. Where's Jalen Graham, their 7th round pick from the season prior from Purdue, how's he going to fit? Where are Ambry Thomas and Samuel Womack going to fit in? We have to look at all these players who look to be on the bubble for the 49ers right now, and we're going to have to analyze how they perform over the next month. What happens to their competition on the roster? Is everybody going to stay healthy? Are there going to be some injuries that allow guys to slot in? And what is the practice squad eligibility for some of these players as far as can the 49ers sneak them through to the practice squad, or is there going to be interest from the rest of the league to sign these players away to their active roster? So I think it's going to be a fascinating game of Tetris over the course of the next month, and I'm happy to answer any questions. We'll turn this into a 49ers Q&A. We can talk about PBP, the Prague Black Panthers, and we could talk about the 49ers roster here over the course of the next several minutes. I'm glad that Kevin Butler has smashed the like button, and I'm ready to talk to everybody else, including the 559 saying, great tackle from Trey Greenlaw. Is John Feliciano on a load management program, or is he injured? I think that he's hurt. As my mic just fell, I got to adjust the mic. I think that he's hurt, but I think that he's only dealing with a minor injury. Kyle Shanahan seemed to imply that it'll only be a couple-day absence for John Feliciano. Congratulations to Prague. Congratulations to the Gladiators from Albert. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. I have a great photo that I want to share when Spencer's able to join us of Bill Walsh and Dan Buns. I believe Bill Walsh is calling the president following, and that would be January 1982 would be, yeah, I believe he's calling President Ronald Reagan, getting the call from the White House following the 49ers Super Bowl victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. So we're going to open this up to that 49ers Q&A. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are watching on this Sunday morning. I get it. You guys want your day off from 49ers coverage, but we will keep on going as promised yesterday. Does Logan Thomas make the team? Well, I have some video to play before I answer your question, and then I'm going to answer it. This is Logan Thomas yesterday at practice. The 49ers seem to be very, very intent on teaching Logan Thomas blocking. He caught 55 passes for the 49ers, or for the Washington Commanders last season. If they can develop Logan Thomas into a good blocker, then I think that he makes the 49ers roster. Oh, we got Spencer on. Let's get Spencer on. It's time to move over to the Prague Panthers. What's going on, man? Spencer Ford's here, coach of the Prague Black Panthers.
Oh, this is the thing. This is it.
You on? You
Hey,
hear me?
that David Lombardi guy that did our team, he has his live show and I want him to call in, so I'm just waiting.
No, you're on. You're on.
Yeah. He's like,
You're on, man.
oh, let me turn the volume up here.
You're good. What's up?
See if I can hear. Let me put some headphones in.
You hear me? We'll wait for Spencer.
One moment.
Is that the bus? We'll wait just a second there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I had to put some headphones in. Sorry about that.
You're good. Well,
We still haven't got. It's a little blurry. I think my phone got wet when they Gatoraded me.
I wish that I had video to play of the Gatorade bath. It was really cool. But what a moment. You guys won there with a stop at the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind that last drive? I know I'm sitting here about to vomit watching that last part of the game.
First thing was I hope we don't give up a touchdown because we haven't scored a single point in the offense and I called the plays. So I didn't want that to happen. And but I mean, our defense has been so tough and gritty all season. They've carried us that I felt like as long as we didn't allow a big play, we could get it done. So I was hoping they would run the ball that last play. We were in a bear front, and they did. But I mean, I was kind of actually emotionless and just numb during that last drive, trying to block it all out. But it was fun.
Well, I'm going to put something up on the screen here. I want you to check this out. Do you see up on the screen the graphic that I put, or is your phone too messed up from the Gatorade?
Oh no, I see it. The 1981 Super Bowl goal line stand. Stop. Yeah.
Yes, that's Dan Buns against the Cincinnati Bengals, and you've been a lifelong 49ers fan, so you also recognize this. This is Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, Dre against Seattle to win the division. Yeah.
So I know that most people, probably nobody on this stream was watching because it was early in the morning. I was watching, and obviously you were on the sideline. You're the coach of the team. But when we talked on the phone a few minutes ago, you said that you saw parallels between this game and the 49ers' first Super Bowl in '81.
Yeah, it was weird because, I mean, you know, it's the first time we've been to the championship game. We've lost in the NFC Championship, and obviously John Brody had lost some NFC Championship games, and you know, in his time. And you know, we went up 20-0 in 1981. The 49ers went up 20-0 in that game, and you know, everything was going great. Then all of a sudden, the Bengals, you know, come back in it, and the Niners won that game 26-21, and we won the game 20-14, and it took a goal line stand to win it. So everything's come full circle. It was really cool to win that way.
I am going to play some video right now if you want to see. This is of you, and after the game, just the look of relief on your face. To give our viewers a little bit more context, Vienna is the team that has dominated this Austrian football league for years, and last year you hosted Vienna in the postseason, and you blew a lead. You lost to them in the semifinals, so that obviously weighed on you. What did it mean to get over the hump, to be able to beat these guys for the first time, given the history, given the fact that you had come up short before?
I mean, it meant everything. We were the lowest win. I mean, we had the lowest wins of every team in the playoffs. We were like, if there was a wild card team, it was us. We started off the season 3-4, and the Vienna Vikings have been the thorn in our side for years here. The first time we ever beat them was last year. We had lost like 20-something in a row to the Vienna Vikings. We beat them last year in the regular season, then lost in the playoffs, blew a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter. And to beat that team in this game for the championship, with our defense, PvP has historically been a defensive team. With our defense coming through, that I couldn't, if I had to script it, that would have been the ending. And it means the world, and it's the pinnacle of PvP success. These guys are so happy.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy because it did look like it was going the wrong way when they completed that pass down to the 1 yard line. But
yeah,
somehow, some way, the guys were able to muster up the strength to make a goal line stuff. At a point of the game, you know, both you and I were watching the same game. The fourth quarter, the defense seemed like they were getting tired. They were getting gassed. They were struggling.
Oh, they were gassed.
Yeah, but when they absolutely had to, there was that they conjured the energy. Was there a message on the sideline, or what was the feeling on the sideline entering that final play?
So that we got to that fourth down play, we knew they were gassed. They called a timeout after, I don't remember a specific, you know, why they called the timeout, but they called the timeout, and it was a 4th and 3. So we knew we needed to give our guys a break. I was planning we had 2 timeouts, and I wasn't going to save them for offense. Our best chance to win the game was to stop them on defense. So I called a time. They called the timeout. I let them get lined up. They went empty. We called a timeout in a 4th and 3. And at least gave our guys a little bit of a breather. So 2 timeouts in a row. And then, you know, they completed that 4th down pass, got a first down, they got to the 1 yard line. And when we called that time, when they called their first timeout, our guys came to the sideline, and guys were dropping to their knees, exhausted.
Wow.
And we had talked about at halftime, you know, there's no tomorrow. Whether we win or lose, we don't have practice anymore. There's nothing to save. We can become legends if we just finish it. So the defensive guys in that huddle, we told them, really our defensive coordinator told Esteban Avila, I want to give him the credit because when it comes to calling the defense, talking to these guys in situations, I give it to him. You know, I listen, and I don't want to interfere because he's their leader. And he told them, hey, there's nothing to save. We need 3 plays here. There's 20 seconds left, I think. We have 3 plays left. Nothing to save. Everything is on the line. Just put it all out there. And the guys just nodded their head, and, you know, they got it. At that point, you're not nervous. You're so tired, there's no room to be nervous. And, you know, they got it done. We went with a bear front in the last play, and these guys got it done. So it was awesome.
Now, the first half obviously was a different story. There wasn't much to be nervous about in the first half. You guys got off to such a good start, and I was just thinking with some of the plays that your quarterback was making, some of the 4 interceptions by your defense in the first half. It seemed that this was the game of their lives, and it seemed that they were just so locked in and so prepared for the moment. It was like, 49ers fans are watching this show right now. To give context and perspective, it was like playing the Cowboys in the 90s, playing the Chiefs now, and coming out, and like the Niners in the 1995 against the Cowboys built that 21-0 lead right after they had lost to Dallas so many times in a row. It was their day. It was their moment. Was there that feeling in that first half that your preparation translated perfectly into how you guys came out in those first 30 minutes?
There definitely was, specifically on defense. We had worked on defense for their offense. They were a passing team, and we had worked on a bracket coverage for the best receiver, number 13. And I haven't looked at the stats yet, but we effectively shut him down. And so the preparation for our defense was awesome. And our defensive back, their quarterback won MVP. Their wide receiver won Offensive Player of the Year. Our American defensive back, Jalen Dennis, he won Defensive Player of the Year. And we basically just game plan for a coverage where he would shadow their best receiver from the safety spot. And he had 2 picks today. He won the MVP award. He was a 4-year starter, 3-year captain at the Division III level, his first year as a professional football player. And he's got a bright football future in front of him if he wants to keep playing. And I mean, we really, our game plan, the whole game, whether we win or lose, it was really going to be dependent on Jalen's play. And Jalen came through for us. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad I got that video of him celebrating right there. And then obviously here's the team getting the trophy. These guys love football so much, Spencer. I mean,
yeah.
I go back to when I visited Prague and I saw you play against Danube earlier this season on May 5th. It was an awesome birthday present for me to go watch that game. And then after I'm watching these guys, you could see it up on the screen right now, literally lugging the goalposts off the field. One of your players is a trauma surgeon by night, and then he's a football player by day. I don't think that Americans fully understand the true passion and love for the game that you see from these players. But to see them realize this goal, given how much it means to them, you have that American perspective now. What has that meant to see firsthand, the passion and the realization of the objective?
The love for these guys have for football is on another level. Even if even with football being America's #1 game, every offensive lineman on our team has a power play tattooed on their arm or leg. So all 5 starting offensive linemen have a football play tattooed on them. And there's veterans in this team who have their jersey number tattooed on their calf. It just means the world to these guys. It's crazy how dedicated they are to the game. And we have 2 doctors on our starting offense. Our left tackle is a gynecologist. He delivers babies by day. Left tackle, nastiest offensive lineman in the league by night. He's tatted up too, and he's a doctor. And then Jacob Oleski, he's our starting veteran wide receiver. He's a team captain, leader of the group. He's a trauma surgeon, and he comes to practice, and he's humble. He wants to be coached hard. He doesn't want us to treat him like like in America, there's some people that are doctors that maybe are on the higher end of society or whatever, or at least want to be treated like it. He just wants to be treated like one of the guys. He's one of the guys, takes the bus to the game with us, and I can't say enough about the humility of these guys and their passion for football. It's like nothing I've ever experienced, whether coaching college in America or here. You never have to beg guys to give effort. They just give 100% effort no matter what. You got to tell them to kind of, relax sometimes so we don't injure ourselves in practice. But the passion for football is off the chain out here. It's incredible.
Can you tell our audience something about yourself as a coach and how you've evolved schematically? We've got a lot of football nuts on the channel, which is great because we could talk about football in depth, intelligently. You grew up watching the 49ers, Mariucci, Owens, Garcia. We've talked a lot about that, but obviously you just invoked some memories of the dynastic 49ers as well. How has Bill Walsh offense and all that, influenced you as a coach to what you have run to a championship now with Prague?
Yeah, so before I ever started coaching, and I started coaching when I was 23, I'm 33 now, I had wanted to learn the West Coast offense. My dad is a 49ers fan. He grew up watching the 1980s 49ers. And, all I knew about them was watching like documentaries about Ronnie Lott, Joe Montana, Bill Walsh, all of it, and I loved it. And I just wanted the Niners to get to a Super Bowl again when I was a kid. And, obviously they have since then. And before I ever started coaching, I would work nights at a hotel, and I downloaded and printed out Bill Walsh's 1985 West Coast offense and learned it. Just self-learned it. Obviously, maybe not to the degree a coach would, but since then I've been able to put pieces together and actually know it. Now, you can't coach that like to that in-depth of a degree at this level or college. You got to have guys that it's their 6-day-a-week job in order to coach that. But definitely the principles of it, are the stuff that I live and die by. And I love the West Coast offense. I'm a West Coast offense, fan, and that's really what inspired me. And what inspired me for this game specifically was I had watched the America's game, 1981 49ers story, a few days ago when they went to their first Super Bowl against the Cincinnati Bengals. And Bill Walsh was talking to the team about routine. Do everything the same that you've been doing. Don't do extra just because it's the Super Bowl. Just treat it like a regular game. And so that was our mantra. Hey, it's the same thing. Just keep it the same. Whatever you do on a Friday night before the game, do that on Friday. Whatever you do on Saturday when we travel, do that on Saturday. Whatever you do Sunday morning, do that. We kept practice the same. We did everything the same. And it worked out. And these guys obviously came out firing out of a cannon and, weren't nervous at all. So keeping routine is the most important thing that I learned from Bill Walsh. Don't change stuff just because it's a big moment. Do what you've been doing.
Well, you didn't change anything from the 1981 49ers. Your goal line stop, and we'll feature you when we get video of the game because I think people will really enjoy the actual tape. I don't have it right now, but it looked a lot like this. We'll just put that out there. It looked a lot like
it was dramatic.
The Bengals. I know that you have to run to the bus, but I got one more, and I'm going to put up. I know we wrote a big article about you last year in the New York Times. This is it. The story of football's rise in Prague with surprising 49ers connections. And, obviously you are one of the 49ers connections, being a 49ers fan. But one of the neat things is that this team was actually founded right after the revolution from communism in the early 1990s. And the biggest star in American football at the time was Joe Montana. So you've got a lot of guys who are now on the staff. Daniel Krabick, I think, is somebody that I should definitely mention, who was one of the first quarterbacks for this team. And he wore number 16 in honor of Joe Montana. And then it turns out they call this the Joe Montana tram, the number 16 tram in Prague. Yeah. So this has been a connection from, a post-communist country to the U.S. And you're a history guy. You're a history buff. How neat is it to be part of that legacy now that the program has finally won an Austrian Football League championship?
Oh, it's been really cool. And this year we lived in a part of Prague. In Prague, I know you know Prague, so it was Prague 5, but we had to take the 16 tram to get to practice. So it was a part of this year too. So it's been awesome because Joe Montana was literally the only guy they knew, when before the Velvet Revolution, when they were under communism, it was hard to get information from the West out here. So Joe Montana was so popular that's the name that was able to leak through the Iron Curtain. So they knew who Joe Montana was, and they idolized him because of what he achieved in a free society and became the top football player. And they knew about him, and they wanted to emulate the Americans. They finally got their freedom, and the Americans skateboard, we'll skateboard. The Americans have water parks, let's do water parks. And then the Americans do football, not soccer. They do American football. Let's do that. And so they wanted to emulate, it was 1991 or so they got their freedom, and they wanted to emulate the 1980s 49ers. And this team was founded on the dynastic 80s 49ers, and that was their inspiration.
Well, Spencer, this is the famous picture that I have to show that I think is in a way tied to what we're talking about. It's Bill Walsh on the phone with Dan Buns at his side. And I believe that Bill in this photo is on the phone with President Ronald Reagan after the Super Bowl in January 1982. So really neat photo there. And obviously it's cool because you've read all Bill Walsh's stuff and you've formulated a lot of your coaching philosophy on that. So just wanted to bring that history back. It was really fun to cover your team over the course of the past year. We'll obviously keep on doing it, but You guys have what, a 3-4 hour bus ride in front of you now? Is it going to be pretty rowdy?
About 5 and count for 7. Nobody parties like the Czechs, and there's the rules on the road. I mean, the rules on the road are a little different in Europe. You can drink in the bus as long as you're not driving it. So these guys are going to party on the bus, and it's completely legal. So it's gonna be a ride home.
It's going to be awesome. Well, say hello to all the guys. Congratulations again. Well deserved, and I know you went the hard way as well. I know disappointment last year, so it's been awesome to see this happen for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave.
All right, take care, Spencer. Congratulations.
Yep.
That was Spencer Ford, 49ers fan, the coach of the Prague Black Panthers. They are Austrian Football League champions. Well, now we can move back to actual 49ers talk. We can move back to the 53-man roster projection. I'll get that up on the screen in a bit. Maybe you guys have some questions. But what great timing, right? 49ers have a day off. So we got to watch some 49ers related action from Europe this morning, and now we get to talk about the 49ers 53-man roster. This is the projection right now, and I'm very, very interested in answering your questions about all of it. Do I think that the 49ers will give Purdy a good O-line after they pay him? Well, I think that they're doing their best to work with what they got right now to add to the line. They drafted Dominic Pooney. They didn't have a high first-round draft pick, so they couldn't go out and get one of the surefire stud tackles if there is a such thing. So they need to pay Trent Williams. That's part one. And I think that it's important to make the line as good as possible before they pay Brock Purdy. 49ers can worry about 2024 beyond 2024 after this season, but they're Super Bowl favorites now, and they need to do what they can to push the chips into the middle of the table for this season. Eric Gomes says, ask some good questions. I agree. We'll be here for a few minutes, allowing you to ask the best questions possible. Congrats for helping to expand interest in a really cool sport. Yeah, I did my best. I mean, it's really, really neat that football is starting to catch on internationally. And I think that the NFL's push for flag football is going to really help because there's such a lower barrier to entry in flag football versus tackle padded football. The reason that soccer is so popular worldwide is because all you need is a ball and a goal. And in tackle football, you need the pads, you need all that. So I think flag football is going to be something that introduces football to so many more countries, so many more people. It's going to debut in the next Olympics. But this is fully padded football that we saw from Prague and from Vienna today in the Austrian Football League Championship. No, you did not miss the roster projections. They're here. And even if you did, you'd be able to rewind the video. This is where it's at. This is the 53-man roster projection. Right now there are so many questions with injuries. Will Guerrero be back in time for the end of training camp with his hamstring? We don't have a firm prognosis yet. Pearsall should be back. Cowing should be back. It doesn't sound like their two hamstring injuries are going to keep them out for all too long. Pearsall should be back this week. It's just a matter of who takes up a roster spot, who doesn't. Spencer Burford will probably be out around 3 weeks. I would expect Feliciano to be back soon. It's a crowded roster, but between the 53-man and the practice squad, I think the 49ers can make things fit well. What's my take on Javon Hargrave this year? He looks thinner and seems to appear more focused this camp. I think he was focused last camp. I don't know. I think that he's in really good shape. I saw some of his workouts this offseason. He might have cut a little bit of fat. He downplayed it when he spoke to the media the other day. The main thing about Javon Hargrave is that he got hurt late last season. He suffered a hamstring injury that he said affected his play for the entire stretch run. So he's healthy now. And I think with that health, he'll be able to better come close to his numbers from the season prior with Philadelphia. How do I think the tight end room is doing? Well, this is what I was playing before Spencer came on. Logan Thomas, I think that he is in competition with Cam Latu for that fourth tight end spot. Logan caught 55 passes for Washington last year. And the thing is, they didn't ask him to run block like he's going to have to run block with the 49ers, which is why you see Brian Fleury right there, the 49ers tight ends coach, working so closely with him and on run blocking technique. And it seemed to be a really good day last year, yesterday, as far as the run blocking work with Logan Thomas. So Thomas and Latu for that final spot in the 49ers tight end room, because I think Kittle is going to make the team. I think Eric Saubert's on track to make the team, and I think Braden Willis is on track to make the team. Will it be Thomas or will it be Latu for that fourth and final spot? How do I think Ricky Pearsall is going to do coming off of his hamstring injury? We'll see. That's the big question. Pads are going to come on Monday, so it's going to be about beating press coverage. There'll be some contact at the line, some stuff that Pearsall didn't have to deal with in college. It's the NFL now. And how he deals with press coverage is going to determine his success in the NFL. We know Pearsall can move. We know he could separate, but if it's physical, can he still do that? We know that he could separate in a non-contact environment. I like his base. I like his strength. I like the lower body on Ricky Pearsall. And if he can translate that strength to the NFL, then I think that he's going to be fine. And we're going to start learning the answer to that question coming forward here over the next few practices. How's the D-line looking at defensive tackle? Well, the pads aren't coming on till Monday, so let's reserve judgment there. I will say the D-line is looking refreshed as far as look at all the new names there. I highlighted it. You could see all the teal highlights. Those are new veterans. Collins, Elliott. Elliott looks like a really big body, which I think a big, wide body, bigger than I thought that he was. So that could be good for the 49ers run defense. The D-line has looked good against Colton McKivitz and Jalen Moore with no Trent Williams. The edge rushers have. So, I mean, that's the only thing that's really stood out to me, some speed rushes over the course of the first practices, but the pads haven't been on yet. So it's a little too early to make firm evaluations. Why don't you check back with me in a few days? They're practicing the new kickoffs. They're working on some directional kicks. I think they're trying to hide a lot of their kickoff strategy from the media, from fans. That might be stuff the 49ers do in walkthroughs behind closed doors, just because it's going to be such a novelty that every team is going to do things probably differently, and they're probably going to hold their cards close to the vest. But I would expect that it seems to be all hands on deck as far as the new returner. I think the 49ers are going to use Deebo Samuel, maybe Christian McCaffrey. It seems that everybody's been back there practicing these returns early in training camp. Fast Ricky, says Eric Gomes. Any more questions? Because I'm hungry. I'm hungry and I got to go get some work done. So I think that's going to be it for today. Congratulations to the Prague Black Panthers, who have won their first Austrian Football League championship. They are coached by 49ers fan Spencer Ford. A lot of relief. They did what the 49ers are hoping to do. They got a monkey off their backs. They lost to Vienna last year, but they are able to beat the Vienna Vikings this year. There's Jalen Dennis, the MVP, defensive MVP of the game for Prague. Awesome win. It was cool to hear from Spencer, and it was cool to feature them on the show during this 49ers off day. Everybody hit that subscribe button. We're very close to a big milestone. So if you're watching right now, go ahead and hit the sub button if you haven't yet. Would very much appreciate that. And we will talk to everybody soon. And we'll finish this with a nice look at the Joe Montana tram. Why, as Prague raises the trophy? Why don't I just bow out of the frame here? And you could see Joe Montana alongside the Joe Montana tram. Quarterback on the wall. Cool stuff. We'll talk to everybody very soon.